Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let me just set the stage a little bit for why we're here. The business of buying and selling of people for sex, what we refer to as sex trafficking, is a serious and growing crime and a big business in America. Sex trafficking involves receiving, recruiting, enticing, harboring, providing, or obtaining by any means an individual to aid in the prostitution of that person. Sex trafficking is a $30 billion per year business in this country. Drugs can only be sold once, but you can sell a person over and over again. The average time that a girl or a woman, and sometimes boys, are prostituted is 7 years. The extent of this problem is staggering, and it is unknown to most law-abiding citizens in this country. Each day in America, 300,000 youth are at risk of being trafficked for sex. The average age of juveniles who are being forced into or coerced into prostitution is 12 to 14 years of age. We are not immune from this problem here in Minnesota. Each day in our state, 8 to 12,000 youth and adults are trafficked for sex. Sex traffickers use a variety of tactics to coerce and control the victims they sell for sex. These include physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, threats of criminal prosecution, withholding of money and IDs, enabling and inducing a chemical addiction, threats towards family and friends, pressure or guilt, and sometimes these victims are subject to gang rape and sadistic torture. Crimes other than prostitution are often involved as well, including sexual abuse, domestic violence, and kidnapping. Social networking sites like Craigslist and Backpage.com have become an easy way for sex traffickers to market their product and for buyers to locate opportunities to purchase sex. Victims of sex trafficking often include children who've run away from their home. The victims in these cases are not just foreign nationals who are illegally transported into this country, although that does occur. But many of these victims are our own kids. They're right from our own neighborhoods and from our own cities and counties. Operation Guardian Angels, which has been spearheaded by the Minneapolis Police Department, is an effort aimed at locating and apprehending the buyers of sex who are often referred to as Johns. They represent the demand that fuels the sex trafficking trade. Our goal is to attack this problem on both the demand and the supply side. And I can tell you that my colleagues and I are committed to doing all we can with our great law enforcement partners to find and apprehend and convict those who are involved in this terrible and insidious trade. We need all the help we can get in addressing this serious problem. We need to empower the victims of these terrible crimes to reach out for help. I have worked with my colleague, Ramsey County Attorney John Choi, and others, including the many that you see up here today, to support Minnesota's safe harbor legislation, which was passed just a few years ago and is a model now across this country in recognizing that juvenile victims of sex trafficking are not criminals. These are children who need counseling and services, and we want all of them to know that we're here to help them. We also need others to keep their eyes open in our communities. People who work in hotels and motels, be on the lookout for rooms that are rented for cash with no luggage or IDs, for individuals who look fearful, disoriented, disheveled, showing signs of physical abuse, being restricted from moving or communicating with others, kids who are made to look and dress as if they're older, and other similar activities. We need to make sure that people in our communities watch out for these same warning signs at homes or in apartments across our communities. We're fortunate to have the work and support of a lot of great organizations, such as Breaking Free here in Minnesota, and other advocates for human rights who are working with law enforcement to try to help protect these vulnerable victims. We also have great support from our faith communities, including the Ministerial Association here in Hastings, which has been a leader in addressing this problem in our county. Operation Guardian Angels had operation here in the city of Hastings. I'm going to let the chief talk a little bit about that and the results, and you'll have a copy of the complaints of the 6 individuals who've been arrested and charged. So I'll turn it over to Chief Brian Schaefer at this time.
Thank you. Good morning, Chief Schaefer, Hastings Police Department. I appreciate everybody coming out here this morning. This is a very, very important and serious issue to our community. Nothing cuts to the fabric of a community more than when a child is victimized or preyed upon by monsters such as those outlined in the 6 criminal complaints. Fortunately, this time the victims were police officers posting as 17 and 15-year-old girls. This could have been worse, and is disturbing to our community. Yes, we are vulnerable, as evidenced by the events of September 10th. The intent and timing of this operation was no coincidence and was a proactive measure that got its origin from our faith-based community, the Annex Network, and collaborating with local law enforcement in the tragic world of sex trafficking. Nearly a year ago, I was invited to a noon-hour luncheon in the second floor of a local automotive dealership where a group of faith-based leaders had joined with the Annex Network to talk about sex trafficking, and they were so shocked, if you will, by the things they heard that they decided as a community that they were going to take the role as community leaders and raise awareness in sex trafficking. It was after that, a group, as the Hastings Ministerial Association, they held a public seminar in April of this year to bring more awareness to the problem. And out of that came an organization called CEASE, the Christian Coalition to End All Sexual Exploitation. This collaborative partnership and its subject matter was so impressive that the Dakota County Chiefs dedicated their fall training session to sex trafficking. Of course, the next logical step in this whole process was to execute a plan and a detail to see just how vulnerable and how big a problem this was in Hastings, or in Dakota County for that matter. We now know the answer to that question. That detail resulted in 6 arrests of adult males seeking sexual relationship with minors. I want to thank my staff, Minneapolis Police Department, St. Paul Police Department, Office of Homeland Security, our local hotel owner at the Hastings Country Inn and Suites, the County Attorney's Office, ongoing support of the Dakota County Electronic Crimes Unit, of course the Annex, and the Hastings Ministerial Association. Without them, this would not have been possible. It's my hope from this point forward that traffickers think twice about bringing their illicit activities to Dakota County, and we are very, very pleased with unfortunately, we're very pleased with the number of people that we did arrest in this detail. It's good news and it's bad news, but I think it does bring an awareness to us that we are, again, a very vulnerable community, no different than any other community in this state. So with that, I would like to introduce Sergeant Grant Schneider of the Minneapolis Police Department, Crimes Against Children Unit, to talk about Operation Guardian Angel.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to talk with you a little bit about Operation Guardian Angel. Back in February of 2014, I posted an ad online, and the ad was crafted to be an offering of prostitution, similar to thousands of other ads that myself and my colleagues have seen over the years. And this ad, in the 22 minutes that it was up before it was pulled by the moderators of this board, drew 75 responses. Of those 75 responses, after I'd introduced the idea that this involved 2 juvenile girls, only 20 remained. Only 20 maintained communication. And of those 20, I maintained communication for a period of approximately 2 weeks. This is what we call our test ad phase. And the purpose of this was to measure what we had hoped would be a remarkably diminished response once the idea of this being involving juvenile victims was introduced. In fact, what we've learned over the last almost year and a half of doing this detail is that the demographic that responds to an ad and maintains communication after it's been introduced that this is a juvenile girl is nearly identical to the demographic of men that respond to Backpage seeking to have commercial sex with an adult woman. Now that's shocking. That's a shocking bit of information because we would like to believe that that person is somehow different. And we know who these men are. We know what they look like. We know where they work. We know where they live. They look a lot more like me than they don't look like me. They're men, middle class, upper middle class, middle age, have families, have good jobs, are educated. So the question that really drives Guardian Angels is how do we target a population of men using technology, using our best practices as law enforcement, and bring to bear the sum total of all of those things that we know to be able to target this problem in the marketplace where this occurs. And that's where Guardian Angels started. Now, Guardian Angels as an operation is fashioned after, loosely fashioned after Operation Vigilant Guardian, which was started in the Western District of Missouri back in 2009 by the U.S. Attorney's Office. That operation has been repeated a number of times around the country. To last count, the number of times since February of 2014 that we've done this operation in Minnesota exceeds all of the other operations run around the country in totality. So we've done more here in Minnesota in the last about a year and a half in terms of this operation than other people have done, I believe, in total around the country. And that's an important statistic because it introduces kind of our resolve collectively with partnerships with our police agencies, with our county attorneys agencies, with our federal partners, Homeland Security investigations, St. Paul Police, the Hastings Police, Woodbury Police, Coon Rapids, Roseville, Maplewood PD, Bloomington PD, the FBI. This list goes on and on of people that have collaborated in this initiative over the past year and a half. The real target of this, obviously, is the demand side, and we've talked about that. And we've crafted it to target specifically those men that are looking to purchase commercial sex from a juvenile. Oftentimes we talk about the damage that sex trafficking leaves in its wake. And we talk about that generally in the context of the victim suffering. But there's a whole bunch of other suffering parts of this that people don't talk about. The suffering that's experienced by the massive collateral damage that's caused when a person gets arrested to their family, to their children, to their wife, to the community in general. And that's why this detail it's hard to celebrate when we have success at it. We really would rather that these men, if they need help, that they'd reach out. If they email me, we'll put them in touch with our faith-based partners that are able to provide the sort of support and help that they need to deal with these issues. But if they won't, if they continue to click that mouse, if they respond to those ads, we're going to be there and we're going to find them. And that's the purpose of Operation Guardian Angel. So thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief and Grant, and all the work your department has done. Obviously, you're leaders in not only our state but our nation in terms of addressing this serious issue. I want to thank Sheriff Tim Leslie, who couldn't be here today, but his Chief Deputy Joe Lico is with us. They help the Electronic Crimes Unit that you heard about from Chief Schaefer. It's located right above where we're sitting here today. In this building, and it's a collaboration of police departments throughout Dakota County and our sheriff's office to help us search electronic items for evidence, and that's where we found the evidence in the cases that we charged in this particular case. So we couldn't do the work without the evidence, and it's gathered. I also want to thank my federal partners, U.S. Attorney Andy Luger, who I know is strongly committed to addressing issues of sex trafficking and child pornography distribution and similar crimes in our state, and a number of these cases get charged federally. And we're grateful for the cooperation from the U.S. Attorney's Office and all of our federal law enforcement partners. As you can see from the complaints that were handed out in this particular incident here in Hastings, 6 individuals have been arrested. They range in age from 24 to 48. They're from Maplewood, Zimmerman, Minneapolis, Cottage Grove, Stone City, Iowa, and Rosemount. I can just show you that these ads attract people from all over the area. There was a similar operation that you just heard about last week, I believe, up and through some charges that were filed in Washington County. And there's going to be some charges soon in Ramsey County, so watch for additional work of this important operation as we address this serious problem. So with that, I'll see if you have any questions.
Sergeant, can you tell me how many operations you've run in the last year and a half, or do you have a number of that and how many prosecutions that's resulted in?
Thanks.
So the question to how many specific operations we've run to date, I believe the count is around 14. I might be off by 2. I apologize. Prosecution-wise, the Washington County and Dakota County are the first ones that were part of this operation centrally to actually charge these cases out with other charges on approximately 52 men pending right now. And that involves all the other county attorneys' offices around the metro area here and this area. So.
So just a little clarification. So the Washington County one from last week was also part of this same Operation Guardian Angel?
Yes, partnership with Woodbury Police Department and Washington County Attorney's Office.
Okay.
I think I heard you mention this briefly, but how widespread is the problem? Do you have a number about the victims? Like how many victims are out there?
Are you directing that to me?
Whoever.
Okay. Did you want to?
No, you probably have the
Okay.
best spot to answer that.
Part of the challenge to dealing with juvenile sex trafficking, and sex trafficking in particular, is prevalence data is really challenging to come by. Yesterday, I sat in a meeting with the Interstate Compact for Juveniles, and one of the statistics that was thrown out there was that for the last year, Hennepin County Child Protection has received 150 referrals for kids that were sexually exploited youth. And that seems like a lot, but that's one county in 1 year, and that's only the ones that were referred to Child Protection. So you can kind of use your own judgment to make a determination. Obviously, we can measure the marketplace. We know how many ads are posted. I'm not going to get into trying to speculate on what percentage, but I will tell you that on any given day, if we look for juveniles, we'll find them.
And so when you run an operation like that, what does it look like? Do you set up upstairs here and just start posting online, or what's it look like?
Well, some of the details of the operation we want to keep confidential, just from a safety point of view for everybody. But specifically, it involves various teams. It's a very labor-intensive operation, which is why partnerships with our county attorney's offices, our sheriff's offices, and of course our other police agencies. I mean, in any given operation, we may have 4 different jurisdictions operating in several different locations specifically supporting that one operation. So the depth of penetration into the marketplace, it's fairly sophisticated.
What part does your faith-based panel play in the operation itself?
That's an evolving part. I know what part I'd like them to play. Aside from just prayer support and that. I mean, I feel that faith-based initiatives with regard to this can target the heart of the problem, and that is supporting the men that are struggling with these issues. And trust me, they do struggle. I've sat across the table looking in the eyes of men filled with tears who are looking down the barrel of losing everything only because they clicked a mouse, called a phone number, and came to a hotel room. And the faith-based partners and the faith-based community is uniquely positioned to really help those men to step out of this and kind of teach us all a couple of words that are really, really difficult for cops to say. And one of those is love and another one's forgiveness. And I mean, the faith-based community can really talk about that. So,
between the Washington County sting and this one, any similarities or differences to help paint this in kind of a metro-wide perspective of what it looks like here, what it takes to kind of bring these cases home?
Every operation tends to be more similar than it is dissimilar. The specifics of who we get tend to be very similar across jurisdictions, and in fact across the country. If you look at these operations that were done in North Dakota, South Dakota, Virginia, Missouri, some of the other places where this operation has been conducted, the demographic is really the same. So it just comes down to local logistics and things like that.
Do you think that there's a perception out there, maybe amongst the general public, that things like this doesn't necessarily happen around here?
I think that's a very big perception, and Chief Schaefer opened with that statement that reflects we'd like to believe this kind of stuff doesn't happen. A part of that is it's easy for us to think about sex trafficking and commercial sex as happening on the mean streets of Minneapolis or Chicago or Los Angeles or something like that. But this is mainstream, everyday, any city, United States, from the shores of Lake Superior to the fields of southwestern Minnesota and places like that. This is a reality in our communities. And so despite the perception it doesn't happen, it's absolutely there.
Once charged, what's the conviction rate on the offenders?
We have a very high conviction rate in our community. We convict 95% of the people we charge with crimes generally. I anticipate that we'll have strong success with these cases as well. This is good, solid police work that was done. We appreciate it. It's important, it's needed, and it's making a difference in addressing this serious problem. As I mentioned before, and I guess I'll just conclude with this comment, that this is a problem that we all need to recognize that it exists, and we all need to work together to try to put a stop to it, because that's the only way we can address and make inroads on this serious problem. So thanks to all of my law enforcement partners, the ministerial association here that is represented, and Sergeant Snyder and Chief Schaefer for their hard work and the work of their department. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.